Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. It was almost midnight when the clock in our bedroom ticked louder than my thoughts. The house was silent, the kind of silence that makes every breath feel louder than it should. I lay there, restless beneath the soft glow of the bedside lamp, wondering why he hadn't joined me yet. My husband, steady, composed, a man in his early 40s who rarely let his guard slip, was still awake, moving somewhere in the house like a shadow with a purpose. Then I heard it, the quiet creak of the door. He stepped in, his shirt sleeves rolled halfway, forearms catching the dim light, his gaze already locked on me. It wasn't just a glance, it was a hold, a second too long, like he was reading my thoughts without asking. I shifted, pretending to adjust the blanket, but really, I was stalling. My breath caught as he walked closer, slow, deliberate, each step heavy with something unspoken. "Couldn't sleep?" I asked, my voice lower than I intended. His lips curved, not a smile, more like an answer he didn't want to give out loud. He sat on the edge of the bed, the mattress dipping, and for a moment our shoulders brushed. Warmth traveled up my skin from that single, accidental touch. Or maybe it wasn't accidental at all. The air between us tightened. His hand rested near mine, close, not touching, like a silent dare. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears, quick, uneven. He leaned in, just slightly, enough for his breath to graze my cheek, warm and steady. My fingers curled into the sheets. I knew something was coming. Something he'd been waiting for all night. But before the moment tipped over, before words turned into something else, he stopped. Just like that. As if he wanted me to feel the edge first, to taste the pause before the plunge. His fingers drummed lightly on the blanket between us, not a rhythm, more a quiet message. I watched his hand, the way veins traced the back of it, how close it was to mine. The warmth of his skin seemed to travel without even touching. I swallowed, my throat suddenly dry. "You've been up late a lot this week," I murmured, trying to sound casual, though my voice betrayed a tremor. "Is there something keeping you busy?" He turned his head, and that slow, knowing glance found me again. "Maybe," he said, his tone low, almost teasing. "Or maybe I've just been waiting." Waiting for what? The question hovered in my chest but refused to leave my lips. Instead, I shifted closer, just an inch, enough that my knee brushed against his thigh. The contact was small, harmless by any measure, yet it sent a current rushing through me. His eyes dropped, not to my hands this time, but to my mouth. It was fleeting, barely a flicker, but I caught it. A breath hitched between us. Somewhere in the house, the heater clicked, breaking the silence for a moment, but the space between us was already thick again. "Someone called you tonight," I said softly, surprising even myself. It came out sharper than I meant, laced with a note I didn't intend, jealousy, maybe, or curiosity wearing its mask. He raised an eyebrow, the corner of his lip twitching. "And you noticed?" I did. I noticed everything. How his sleeve had been rolled, how his cologne lingered longer tonight, how his hand hadn't moved from that place near mine. Then it happened, not a plan, not a move either of us made on purpose. The mattress shifted as he leaned in to set his glass down, and our fingers tangled, just for a heartbeat, skin against skin, rough warmth meeting the back of my knuckles. Neither of us pulled away. The air tightened. My pulse roared in my ears. His breath brushed the side of my face, and I turned slightly, not enough to meet his lips, but close enough that I could feel the heat of them. Then the wind outside rattled the window, snapping the moment in half. But neither of us moved. If anything, we were closer now. The room felt smaller now, as if the walls had shifted closer with every second of silence. I should have turned away, pulled the blanket higher, said something safe, anything to undo the way the air thickened between us. But I didn't. He leaned back slightly, studying me with that quiet intensity he wore so easily. Then, without a word, his hand brushed past mine, fingers grazing my wrist, deliberate this time. A soft static raced along my skin. I drew in a sharp breath, my pulse betraying me. "You're awfully awake for someone who was ready to sleep," he murmured, his voice low, close to my ear. I felt the warmth of it more than the words themselves. My shoulder tensed, then relaxed as his breath lingered a heartbeat too long. I was waiting, too, I admitted before I could stop myself. His eyes flickered with something, amusement, maybe, or challenge. He shifted, the mattress sinking again, and the distance between us vanished to a whisper. His knee pressed lightly against mine, his fingertips resting at the edge of the blanket as though testing how far I'd let him go. There were a dozen reasons to stop this. The hour. The tension. The way his name still echoed from that phone call earlier. But those reasons felt like paper walls, thin, useless, ready to tear. He moved a little closer, his voice a fraction lower. "Are you going to pull away?" I didn't answer. Instead, I let my fingers slide, just barely, over the back of his hand. The heat there made the room feel 10 degrees warmer. He exhaled, a quiet sound that was almost a laugh, and for a moment neither of us blinked. Then he did something I didn't expect. He reached up, brushed a loose strand of hair behind my ear, and let his fingertips linger at my neck. My breath hitched. My chest rose, shallow and uneven. The clock ticked once, loud, hollow. The moment stretched. And then, he leaned in, just enough for his lips to hover near mine, not touching, not yet, but close enough that one more breath could break every unspoken rule between us. The silence was alive now, not empty, but full, pulsing with everything neither of us had said. Our breathing matched without meaning to, shallow at first, then deeper, as though the air between us had turned heavier. His fingers lingered against my wrist, unmoving, warm. I should have pulled away, but instead, I let my hand shift ever so slightly until our palms brushed. His thumb traced a slow, almost absent-minded line along the side of my hand, a touch too light to claim, too deliberate to ignore. "Still awake," he whispered, his voice close enough that I felt the warmth of it on my lips. A soft laugh escaped me, more breath than sound. "Whose fault do you think that is?" He smiled, not with his mouth, but with his eyes, a glint that said he knew exactly what game we were playing. His knee pressed more firmly against mine now, his body angled toward me. The space between us was no longer space, it was a charged line drawn so fine it felt like a thread ready to snap. "You're warm," he murmured, as if the observation justified the way his hand rested a heartbeat too long at my hip. I tensed, but didn't move. Neither did he. The clock ticked again, 1 second, 2. Our eyes met, locked, and this time neither of us looked away. His breath grazed my cheek as he leaned in, slow enough that I felt every inch of the distance close, slow enough to give me every chance to stop him. I didn't. Instead, I tilted my head, barely, enough that his nose brushed mine, a ghost of contact that made my pulse kick hard against my ribs. He whispered something then, too soft to catch, but the way it shivered against my skin made my eyes flutter shut for just a second. That was all it took. The door creaked faintly somewhere down the hall. A sound. An interruption. We both froze, breath caught midair, his lips still a breath from mine. The spell didn't break, not yet, but it wavered, fragile, waiting to tip. The creak in the hallway faded, leaving a charged silence in its wake. Neither of us moved right away. Our breaths slowed, then steadied, though the air still felt too thick to breathe normally. He cleared his throat, a quiet, low sound. "You should get some water," he said, not quite looking at me. I nodded, grateful for something to do, anything that didn't feel like teetering on the edge of a cliff. I slipped out of bed, wrapping the robe tighter around me, but I felt his eyes follow as I padded toward the kitchen. The tiles were cool against my feet. I reached for a glass just as I heard his steps behind me. "You didn't have to come," I murmured. "Didn't trust you to stay awake without me," he teased, his voice a shade too smooth, too amused. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed, a hint of a smirk tugging at his lips. It was that smirk, careless, possessive, that stirred something sharp in me. "Or maybe you didn't trust whoever keeps calling you at this hour," I said before I could stop myself. His brow rose, but his smile didn't fade. "Jealous?" he asked, leaning just a fraction closer. His cologne, warm and familiar, filled the narrow space between us. I turned to face him fully, holding the glass of water, my fingers brushing his as I handed it over. The touch lingered longer than necessary, a second, maybe two. His hand was warm, steady, and when his thumb grazed the side of my knuckle, I didn't pull away. The kitchen felt smaller than the bedroom now. One step, and we were almost chest to chest. The refrigerator hummed in the background, the only sound between our quiet breaths. He tipped the glass toward me, offering the rim. "Try it," he said softly. It wasn't a question. It was a challenge. I sipped, and as I did, his fingers brushed the side of my face, not a caress, just enough to make my breath hitch. When I lowered the glass, he was still there, still close, his eyes dark with something unspoken. Then, as if fate were playing tricks, the edge of my robe caught on the drawer handle when I turned, tugging me back. I stumbled, right into him. His hands caught my waist instinctively, firm and unhesitating. My palms landed flat against his chest. We froze. Our eyes locked. His hands didn't move. Neither did mine. For a moment, the world felt like it had narrowed to that single, fragile breath between us. I could feel his heartbeat against my palms, quick and strong, matching my own. "Careful," he murmured, but the words sounded more like a warning to himself. It felt inevitable then, the pull, the heat, the way every excuse had thinned to nothing. One more step, one more breath. And then, somewhere in the house, a phone buzzed. The buzz from the phone lingered in the air, sharp and intrusive. We both turned toward the sound, neither of us stepping away. His hands were still at my waist, warm and steady, fingers splayed as if he'd forgotten they were there. My palms remained on his chest, feeling the subtle rise and fall beneath them. "You should get that," I whispered, though my voice lacked conviction. He shook his head slowly, eyes still on me. "Not right now." The moment stretched, fragile, dangerous, and impossibly quiet. He lowered his forehead to mine, just enough that our breaths mingled. My eyes fluttered shut, the warmth of his skin pulling me closer than any word could. The phone buzzed again, but fainter this time, as if the world outside the kitchen had started to dissolve. "I was waiting," he murmured, so low it felt like the words were meant for the space between us, not my ears. "For what?" My voice trembled, with curiosity, with something else I didn't want to name. His thumb traced a slow circle at my hip. "For you to notice." The confession cracked something open in me, all the quiet glances, the pauses, the night stretched thin with unspoken questions. I had noticed. I just hadn't let myself believe it. Then, from the corner of the counter, the phone screen lit up again, a name flashing bold across the glow. It wasn't mine. It wasn't anyone I expected. I pulled back, just enough to look at him. His jaw tightened, only for a heartbeat, but I saw it. The air between us shifted, not breaking, but bending into something heavier. "You were going to tell me?" I asked softly. He didn't answer right away. His hand lingered at my waist, unwilling to let go, even as his eyes flicked toward the still-lit phone. "I was," he said finally. "Just, not tonight." The weight of those words settled between us like a final thread pulled too tight. His forehead still touched mine, our breaths still mingling, the closeness still undeniable, but the question now hung louder than the silence. What happens when everything comes out? The phone finally stopped buzzing, leaving a hollow quiet behind. His forehead was still pressed to mine, our breaths still mingling, but something had shifted. The heat between us hadn't gone, but it had taken on a new shape, less wild now, more deliberate. I stepped back first, slowly, fingers grazing the edge of his shirt as I let go. I guess some things can't wait forever, I said softly, echoing the restless thought that had kept me awake in the first place. His eyes followed mine to the phone on the counter. He exhaled, a low sound that might have been a sigh, might have been a surrender. Some things, he murmured, are worth the wait. He reached past me to pick up the glass of water, his hand brushing mine again, not by accident this time. It lingered, warm and steady, before he set the glass down and turned fully toward me. There was a question in his eyes, unspoken but clear. Do we let this night end here, or do we let it rewrite everything? I smiled, small, secret, the kind that belonged only to that quiet hour between midnight and dawn. Come back to bed, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. We walked down the hallway together, steps unhurried, the silence no longer heavy but threaded with something softer. At the bedroom door, he paused, then wrapped an arm gently around me, not possessive, not claiming, just present. I leaned into the embrace, feeling the steady thrum of his heartbeat against my cheek. It was a hug that said everything the night had held, and everything it hadn't. When we finally slipped beneath the covers, the clock ticked past 1. The room was the same, soft glow, quiet walls, but it felt different now, as if the night itself had breathed and shifted. He lay beside me, closer than before, his hand finding mine under the blanket. No more words. Just a glance, that same held look from the start, only now it carried a promise. Sleep came slowly, like it, too, wanted to linger in the warmth we'd left between us.